Yeah, this is fascinating.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Every Man Has a Story, and we're here with Klaus, and this is the second part of our interview here. And we've been talking about diving, we've been talking about whales and other animals, how they can go underwater and stay for a long time. Do you know much about, like, say, seals and walruses and animals like that, and how deep they can go and how they can stay underwater for so long, and penguins and other marine creatures?
I can't give you the exact number. I believe that the elephant seals are among the deepest divers among the seals. And
I saw those in Patagonia.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, on the beach. They're huge.
Very interesting, actually, right? In the elephant seals, the huge ones are the males, right? The females are just the size of a regular seal.
Wow.
And did you see the males fighting?
No, I just saw like one, I think like 4 or 5 of them just laying on the beach in Patagonia like 30 years ago. And you could walk right up to them. They didn't seem very, intimidated by me, but they were huge.
Yeah, and then the interesting thing is, right, so there's a huge difference in terms of body size between males and females. And that goes with, I think it's a very curious fact, it's not quite related to diving, that goes with a very big harem. So some of the big males mate with 100 females in one season.
Unbelievable. Huh.
So the bigger the size difference between males and females, the bigger the more males per female.
Now they can stay at sea for like a long time, for days, right? And so how do they sleep out there? And especially like there's rough water, there's a storm, and these marine animals like seals and walruses are at sea, even penguins. And how do they breathe? How do they sleep?
I think sometimes they actually sleep, floating or even underwater while holding their breath. There's a great movie I want to recommend, which is called The Corkscrew Killer. And it's about the Greenland shark, which is specialized on hunting sleeping seals. And then it would just essentially, roam around, in these polar regions, and there would be a sleeping seal, and it would rip it apart in such a gruesome way, as if it has been turned like a corkscrew.
Wow.
And then the movie, I think it's on YouTube too. It's highly recommended. These seal scientists found these, horribly mutilated seals, and they couldn't tell what was going on. And then it took them years and years, of detective work before they found that, this was the Greenland shark. So
it's just incredible that a warm-blooded animal like a seal or a walrus can stay out there for days, and they have to breathe like every 30 minutes, don't they, or even sooner?
Correct, yeah. So the breathing is clearly an issue. With these polar animals, of course, what's a big issue is the thermal regulation. So, this is 0-degree water.
Doesn't that help though, in a way? Doesn't that help them make more use of the oxygen and slow their metabolism?
Well, I mean, this is a very good point. What you said is true for fish, right? Which have the body temperature is the same as the ambient temperature. So these, Arctic fish, their metabolism is very slow. But, seals are mammals like us. So what they do, they're just really fat, right? So they have this big layer of blubber, which doesn't have a lot of blood vessels. So, and this is a strategy you can use as a human. I'm not incredibly fat. I'm slightly chubby, but I have not worn a wetsuit in about 3 years. And so basically the insulation, and then the blue whales have such a thick layer of blubber at the end of their feeding season that if they got even fatter, they would probably overheat while swimming in Arctic water. So there is like, half a meter of fat around them. So none of the body heat, which their muscles and their metabolism generates, can dissipate. So if they got even fatter, right, they would get a heat stroke while swimming in the Arctic.
Interesting. I read something, I believe it was about dolphins, that they said that their brain is 2 hemispheres, and that they can go to sleep half the brain, and then go and switch back and forth, so they can stay active, but half their brain is asleep and the other half is awake.
Yeah,
is that true?
I'm sure there would be. I should really look that up, so that what the empirical basis. I've read that several times too. I mean, I'm not sure if the complete hemisphere will be active, but there will have to be some residual activity, because you obviously, like as a land animal, you can just lay down, and I mean, of course, you need to be safe from predators, but you don't need to swim to be able to breathe. But there's probably some, subconscious activity going on, must be, for them to stay upright, keep breathing.
I saw something with sharks one time where they said they were sleeping and they were like at the bottom of the ocean, not moving, but there was a current. And so they could just sit there with their mouth open, the water would flow through their gills, and so it was as if they were moving, but they weren't. But with fish, don't they have to keep moving, or can they just stay still and just breathe?
Well, it's, again, very interesting question. So there are a couple of options here. I'm really interested in gobies, small marine fishes. If you watch them, you see the gill covers pump constantly. So they would just use the muscles in their cheeks to pump fresh oxygen over there. Other options, sardines, I believe, will die if you keep them from swimming. So if you put them in a small tank where they can swim, they will die from asphyxiation.
So they're active 24 hours a day.
They need to swim. Sometimes you have strong currents, especially in freshwater fish. Very interesting fact, so we were just talking about marine turtles, right? Right. So you sometimes have these remoras or shark suckers on them. Yeah. So which is essentially a fish where the dorsal fin has become like a ratchet. And then they suck themselves onto, whales, large sharks, manta rays or turtles. The turtle swims, the fish doesn't have to swim. So the fish doesn't have to do anything to blow water over its gill. So it's essentially a water movement work parasite.
Going back to the brain, do most mammals and reptiles, do they have a 2-hemisphere brain, and if so, do scientists know what the reason is to have 2 hemispheres of the brain? Why isn't it just one?
Yeah, that's a very fundamental question of neurobiology. So then, yes, so every vertebrate has 2 hemispheres, and the separate workings of 2 hemispheres, the lateralization, that different things happen left and right, and that is more the case in mammals than even in marsupials or in reptiles. And so there are more structures relaying information between the 2 hemispheres.
Now, is it always that the left hemisphere controls the right side of the body and the right controls the left?
Yeah.
I wonder why that is.
Well, a lot of this descending and ascending fibers, they tend to cross. Is there a necessary reason for this? I think not. But this is one of these things where like a historical accident in evolution got fixated. So you had this first, primitive fish like in the Cambrian or the Ordovician periods, 500 million years ago, their body was just an elongated body with a left and a right side. Brain, left and the right side. And then, the fibers going down, they would cross, and this has just basically, there was never a reason to restructure this. So we essentially got stuck with a historical accident in evolution which happened many 100 million years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do scientists, neurologists know yet where consciousness resides in the brain, or actually what consciousness is?
Yeah, very good question. This happens to be, my second leg I'm trying to stand on scientifically. So, complicated issue. What is it? You can probably summarize that you need to integrate a lot of things, right? So you get a lot of different information. So obviously I'm seeing you here, but then I'm kind of at this other, I see the table, at the same time I can touch the table, I still smell the hot chocolate I just drank. So there is a variety of senses, right? What you make of them. Then you have all of these senses. You have memories. You have drives, right? I'm thirsty. I want to take another sip of that hot chocolate. How do you integrate all of that? So most likely, the adaptive value of consciousness in humans, and probably something like a great ape. That will be in that integration of a lot of modalities which come together.
Well, where does consciousness, in your opinion, cut off as far as life forms? Like, is an ant conscious? Is an amoeba conscious? I mean, how far down do you go before you don't think they're like on autopilot? They're really not conscious of anything. And also, do these lower life forms have memories? So memories for sure. Like even bacteria would have memory, and bacteria obviously don't have a brain, right? Because they're a single cell. There's memory. The memory would be in the modifications of individual proteins. Where does consciousness cut off, right? So we can. And what is consciousness? Like, is it? If you were to say, can you give me consciousness in like 2 sentences? Like, what is consciousness?
Well, I think you would have to say it certainly has something to do with the integration of several modalities. So you have the different types of sensations. You have what you see, what you smell, what you touch, what you remember. How do you integrate all of that in one, executive theater, so that you can, act on you integrated activity in all of your brain. So, how do you integrate what's happening in your brain on a really high level?
Now, don't you think that some animals have more awareness of their eyesight, for example? They see colors we don't see.
Yeah.
They hear sounds that we can't hear. They smell things that we can't smell.
Yeah.
So, would you say their consciousness is more powerful or more complicated than, say, humans in some ways?
Probably not more. It's very hard to put that on a single axis. But I think the question is very good. Where's their cutoff, right? So, before we started filming, we briefly discussed that you have this interesting, spot test. So if you put, while a person is sleeping, if you put like a blue spot on his nose, and he will look at himself in the mirror and go, that's me, right? And I have to wipe that off. Great apes can do that. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans. Monkeys cannot. Like macaques are not capable of doing that. So there's probably some, dolphins can, and elephants can. So there's probably some cutoff, where there's like the really high, human-like consciousness stop. The probably, like elephants have huge brains, right? And I mean, these great apes still have, their brains are not as big as ours, but they're still massive. And there's probably, something just below that, elephant, great ape, dolphin, like, social large brains, mammal level, probably something below there.
Let me ask you a question probably scientists hate to hear, but do you believe that there's such thing as a soul? That there's some other kind of, that, that you are you just what's in your brain? Or I've heard that the heart has a memory.
Yeah.
Or do you think that there's any existence after death?
I don't believe in anything like a soul. I mean, there's no place for this in science. I think if somebody wants to believe that, like on a metaphysical level, or to make himself better when like a relative dies. I'm not a fundamentalist here. I think it's fine when people use this. I think when it should be used like in a very allegorical level. To me, like in neuroscience, brain research, there's nothing like a soul.
Interesting. We talked earlier in our past interviews a little bit about Elon Musk and Neuralink.
Yes.
And there's more and more information coming out about that. And I think it's just fascinating, the idea that maybe we're evolving as a species. Like, you're old enough to remember when there were no cell phones. And nowadays, if someone leaves their cell phone at home and they're 5 miles from home, they'll turn around and go back to get their phone. They've got to have it. And so in a way, you've linked yourself to this technology, and this Neuralink thing seems like it could be the next step. Like perhaps it'll be like in the 80s, 90s, when only the rich people had the cell phones, the mobile phones. And now the rich people will have this Neuralink put in where they will have basically Google in their brain.
I agree.
What do you think about, what do you think about that?
It'd be very interesting. I think you're right. I mean, I just like, to me, Google is ubiquitous. Like, I'm trying to find out some detail about the life of some fish, and that's what I do. I look at Google Scholar, and I mean, especially here, right? I mean, imagine being in Dumaguete 100 years ago. It would have been a nice place, but you would be so cut, right? I mean, if you want to look something up, you would have to like send a letter to the UCLA library, and then you would get a book back like 6 months later or something like that. So I think this fact that we are kind of fusing more and more with technology, it's clear, but it'd be pretty hard to what we're doing now with our eyes, like our understanding of images. I mean, good on him for trying.
We talked about how that, to begin with, it's going to be able to cure people of paralysis or blindness. And I'm not a scientist, obviously, but it seems like you have to have all these filaments going to all these different parts of the brain. And isn't it true that like my wiring and your wiring is not the same? It's like, it's different.
Correct. And that, I think, will be one of the big problems with this machine brain connections. That they have to be adaptive.
Right.
You have to put in your link, and then you can't, there needs to be a learning process in your hardware, where to link up with.
You'd have to test the person to somehow find out where to actually place these.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that there's so much information going around that I'm not sure what's the number of electrode he has now. I don't know, is it in the hundreds or is it in the thousands? It's a big number, but I think it's still it's way below of the information flow in and out of our brain. So yeah, I think I think with the paralysis, like I know with the Cochlear, they're pretty good cochlear implants, so that people can regain some hearing when they had some catastrophic infection which rendered them deaf. I think that there's some progress with retina, with the eyes, and I mean it'd be fantastic to have somebody who is paralyzed. Have you seen these Boston Dynamics?
No.
It's this, I recommend you Google it. It's awesome. So it's this robot company, and they're making, unsurprisingly based in Boston, and they make this. It looks like a real-world Terminator. I mean, not in terms of that it can speak, but how it can run. So I mean, they have these like horse-like robots which can essentially run up a steep hill.
I have seen those
in a forest. I mean,
they're very scary looking.
They are, and then at this point they are like an NFL player, that they can jump up on boxes, and you can knock them sideways and they regain their balance. So if you combine this with a couple of brain implants, I know it could be pretty spectacular for people who are now in a wheelchair.
They actually have, like, they almost become like a drone or something that they control with their mind.
If you can directly control a robot like this, I mean, we're not there yet, but it's.
And going back to animals and fish or whatever, but like we communicate with voice or with written words or with moving our hands, symbols. But with animals, do you think that there are any animals that are somehow controlling their self or communicating with each other through like mental telepathy, almost like brain to brain, almost a wireless? Is there any evidence of anything like that?
Well,
like when you see a flock of birds or sardines all moving this together, could they be communicating in another way that we haven't discovered yet?
Well, I think I wouldn't say anything we haven't discovered yet, because there's only so much physics, right? Like electromagnetic waves, there's sound waves. There's touch, there are odors. But you do have some crazy types of communication systems in fish. And interestingly, this evolved twice in the Amazon River as well as in West Africa. So you have these weak electric fish, which essentially, they produce electric fields which vibrate at oscillate at very high frequencies, and then this is the fish, and then there would be like another fish here, and then the electric waves it generates get distorted.
Right.
So it can see via, it can sense the distortions of the electric fields it makes, and eat that fish. They can also talk to each other, like they're mating calls in electric. So there's like thousands of a second, right? Like a very brief signal, and it means like I'm an attractive male fish. So that's probably the closest. I wouldn't call that telepathy, but that's probably the most alien type of sense and communication system.
And then you've got dolphins and whales that use clicks, and they can actually see an object that's pretty far away that you couldn't see with their actual eyes, but they actually get a mental picture of it, right? I wonder how detailed that is. Is it just like the size, the shape of it, or can they see a color? Can they identify what type of fish it is?
Like it's like a sonar, right? Which is like what's used in a ship, and I'm pretty sure they can see color, but there's a good amount of detail. So the clicks at a very high frequency. And they can do things like spot prey fish hiding under the sand, all kinds of tricky things. And you can, obviously you can't put yourself into the mind of the dolphin. But what you can certainly do is you can, calculate resolutions, right? So the frequency of these clicks, you know how the sound waves disperse, and then kind of the organs, the sense, like the ears basically, and you can calculated resolution. I can't give you any exact numbers, but it's pretty good, and it does things like penetrate sand, right? Where you would have essentially like a difference in density. So
I saw an experiment with seals one time where they blindfolded them and actually clipped off their whiskers, and they took a fish and they dragged it to the water in a pattern, right? And then they let the seal go, and it followed the pattern of how they drugged the fish, and it couldn't be smelling water. I mean, and they still couldn't figure out like how that seal would know that trail of where that fish went. What senses it was using to do that.
I wonder whether that was acoustic too, maybe. I'm not sure. Like I've read some things about these sonar-like systems of dolphins, but not sure about their pinnipeds.
There's so much that we don't know, though, right? As a scientist, isn't there a lot that we don't know?
And I mean, it's almost like I start reading about one topic, and then I go, what about this? What about that? So, like, any question, good scientific study opens like 10 new doors of questions.
Speaking of physics, the double slit experiment. It's a whole different thing, but where a proton goes through, if you observe it, it's a particle or a wave. I've heard that could be true also in biology, that just the fact of observing an animal could change the behavior, even though the animal doesn't realize it's being observed. Do you think there's any truth in that?
Well, I mean, there's like and I'm not an expert at all for quantum physics, but yeah, there are these issues, right, that you cause a waveform collapse if you observe. I don't think you have something that fundamental, but you clearly have observer effects. And I mean, it's this, and there's not even any magic, right? I mean, just imagine if there were like 3 people watching us now, right? It would feel different, right? It could be nice, or it could be super awkward, right? So I think this, in humans with a strong sense of social.
Well, it's like being you're a professor, and so it'd be like if you gave your class to a group of say 100 students, and you gave the exact same lecture, and there was nobody there, and it was just being filmed. It would affect your performance and your
100%. Yeah, exactly.
And so, but in a way, you're getting something from them. You can feel that energy coming from your audience.
Yeah, but I think what you're getting, I mean, it's like body language, things like that.
Interesting. Well, we hit another 30 minutes, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Good questions.
And I appreciate you answering all my silly questions.
These were also questions. Thank you.
And hope we can talk again. And we're going to be going diving on Saturday to Apple Island.
Apple Island. Yeah.
And once again, you've got your own YouTube channel. Tell us about that.
Yes. So Pacific Klaus, Pacific like the ocean, Klaus like my name with a K. Okay. There's a YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter, Flickr, and Instagram, and it's all marine life. So, macro photography of fish, a lot of gobies, a little bit of freshwater fish lately, animal behavior. Okay. So enjoy.
And tell us about your books.
Yeah, so I have a book out which is in German. It's called Gehirn Extreme, which means like extreme brain, which is about extreme brain states. So if you speak German or if you know anybody, please get it. I have a new book just written, which is called The Lives of Gobies. That's in English. So it's about this one special group of fishes, the Gobies, which the focus of my academic research and of a lot of my photography. That book is still looking for a nice publisher. So again, if you're a literary agent or if you're a publisher, get in touch with me, please.
And I'll be putting a link to Klaus's YouTube channel and everything in the description of this video, part 1 and part 2. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe. Please share this video with your friends, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.